Hello, hello. Oh my god.
Hi.
I'm so sorry to everyone who had to hear that. That's horrendous.
I'm sick.
Jamie's sick again. Shocker.
Like you've never been sick before.
Oh, I'm always sick. I work with kids. Kids are nasty. Do you know how many times a day I get coughed on with like full tongue out cough? So I understand the pain.
Well, you gotta get excited. We're talking about true crime.
We're about to do one of my favorite types of episodes.
Raw dogging.
We are not gonna raw dog.
We're gonna raw dog a serial killer. Serial murderer.
I don't want to raw dog a murderer.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Jane, and this is Creeps and Coffee.
A show where we talk about the dark parts of the world around us.
Cryptids, conspiracies, things that go bump in the night.
And the crimes behind the scariest creatures of all, humans.
Join us as we take a look at the stories sure to give you the creeps.
Pull up a seat, grab a coffee,
and let's have a chat.
Like we said ever so gracefully before, we are doing another true crime episode today. And you guys know how much I love true crime episodes. However, this one, unfortunately, I can't even go into my history on the criminal because this case is one of perhaps the most famous unsolved case in the States.
Hashtag unsolved.
I would say perhaps the most famous unsolved case in the world, but I think it's a close second to Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
But when it comes to the United States, when it comes to North America's reign of terror, when it comes to serial killers, the Zodiac Killer is among the most notorious.
Yeah.
There's a lot to cover in this case, which is exciting but also daunting when it comes to reviewing something like this, I think, because it's almost been done to death.
Yeah.
But there's always more to discover, which is part of the reason it's such an intriguing story in the true crime community.
Well, they only solved something in 2020. So it's
Yeah, there's aspects of the case that were solved right away. There's aspects that have never been solved. There's aspects
and this happened in the 60s.
Yeah, so in our lifetime, will we see the Zodiac Killer case solved? Potentially.
I hope so.
But potentially not. Look at Jack the Ripper. That's been hundreds of years. As I say with every true crime episode, before we really get started, we fuck around a lot, we joke around a lot, and I love that we get the chance to do that. But it's equally as important to acknowledge that the people that we're going to discuss in this story, particularly the people who we're really going to be able to put names to, like the victims, are real people. This is not some fairy tale. This is not some fictional case that's been turned into the million movies that have come out of it. This is, unfortunately, for the victims and the families of the victims, a very, very real circumstance wherein at least 7 people had their lives significantly changed, and many, many more allegedly or speculatively have been impacted. Not even to mention the extended family, the friends, the people who cared about, the people who were taken away far too early in their lives. So, unfortunately, we are going to be talking about some pretty intense topics today. So if true crime is not your thing, if these cases are not what you fancy, that is completely understandable. It is more than okay. You are allowed to click off of this episode now. We'll see you for the next one.
Go listen to a cryptid episode, a conspiracy one of our goofy games. My birthday special will be out by now. Those are much more lighthearted.
Significantly more lighthearted. But if this is your jam, feel free to join us for the discussion. But always keep in mind that there's a level of respect that needs to be had when discussing cases like this. There's a level of integrity that the families would like to keep.
Be a human. Have empathy, have sympathy.
Exactly. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
So,
not for the Zodiac Killer.
Jesus. But yeah, this case, like we said, is a little bit different because there is no history to go off of when it comes to the killer themselves, because to this day, we still don't know who he is. We say he pretty definitively based on a lot of the information that has been collected. Eyewitness accounts, personal accounts, statistics. But at the end of the day, you never really know.
I think it was a man. Or multiple. Well, we can get into that.
We will get into that as well. But normally my spiel goes into understanding the background of this person.
Yeah.
But I think cases like this are so interesting because we don't have a background.
You can speculate, but you can't prove anything.
Exactly. And I think in terms of like the perspective of someone like an FBI profiler in a case like this, it's really difficult to profile someone when you don't definitively know if it is the same person. You don't know anything really about behavioral patterns. So there is no explanation of where these behaviors came from. There's no understanding of why these things happened in the first place or why they happened the way that they did. So it makes it a lot more complicated to come to an understanding from a psychological standpoint of how any of this occurred. We really are still at ground zero.
I also feel bad for all of the detectives and investigators who racked their brains for months, years, trying to solve this and have still nothing. Like, you've got a couple of, like, ideas, a couple of potentials, but nothing's proven, nothing's set in stone, and that would drive me nuts. Like, I would feel like a failure as a detective, even though it's like, hey, some things simply can't be solved. But, like, it would ruin me.
No, 100%, especially with the gravity of a case like this. I think any unsolved case probably sticks with the lead detective pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you want to be able to give the families closure. You want to be able to give the victims the outcome that is deserved in the situation where they were treated so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the easiest way for us to go about talking about the Zodiac Killer is to start right off the bat with the crimes. What makes the Zodiac Killer so notorious? So we're going to start by talking about a man named Raymond Davis. Raymond Davis, known more from his friends and family as Ray, was a 29-year-old cab driver in Oceanside, California in 1962. So we're going to look at what Ray was up to the night of April 10th, 1962, specifically around 11:20 p.m. Let's talk about Ray's life. Ray had become estranged from his wife, so he had moved in with his brother in a rented house in Oceanside. At 11:10 p.m., he picked up a fare for his cab at a downtown cab stand, they say possibly on Mission Avenue, and he notified the dispatcher that he was delivering the fare to a location in South Oceanside. And that was the last that anyone ever heard from Ray Davis alive. The next morning, Ray's body was found in the upscale neighborhood of St. Malo, which was Oceanside's first gated community. Fun fact. Ray had been shot twice from the back seat of his cab. He had one shot to his back and another shot to his head. His body was dumped in the alley, and the cab was stolen and then abandoned at 400 South Pacific Street. The exact dump site of the body was in an alley directly behind South Pacific Street. He wasn't robbed. There was nothing taken. Police could never establish a motive for the killing. What's important to point out here about Ray's murder is that it is potentially the first of the Zodiac Killer's crimes.
So they couldn't prove anything?
They absolutely could not prove a thing.
Right.
So the reason people think this is connected, the reason people think that Ray could be a Zodiac victim, is that the killer of Ray Davis called the police in advance. And this killer over the phone warned the police that he would soon be committing a crime.
Oh.
Didn't mention Ray specifically. It wasn't a targeted attack. But soon after Ray was killed, the police received another call from the same killer, threatening to target a random bus driver, essentially saying, I pulled this crime. I warned you I was going to do it. I'm going to do the same thing with a bus driver. The police force pulled servicemen from Camp Pendleton, which was nearby, and they guarded bus stops. This was about 7 years before the main Zodiac killings occurred.
Yeah.
But the amount of similarities, you're shooting a cab driver to death in a wealthy neighborhood, which, as we'll discuss later on, is very, very reminiscent of later Zodiac crimes. You're calling the police to take credit for a murder. You're calling the police to also warn them of future murders. You're openly stating that your intent is to baffle and upset the police, which is very, very reminiscent of later Zodiac interactions. You're making a bus the subject of a death threat, so making a vehicle connection. And there's no obvious motive for murder. It is also integral to point out that it was a .22 caliber weapon that was used.
Yep.
Which will be important. However, despite all of these similarities, obviously, if this is the first attack, they don't know that there's similarities. But later on, when more was discovered about the Zodiac Killer and a lot of media attention across the country and across the world was drawn to this, there was no law enforcement agency that notified anybody else or warned anything or even noticed that there were so many similarities between the unsolved murder of Ray Davis and the unsolved and currently occurring Zodiac killings. So, the idea here is that either this was a really weird coincidence, number one. Number two, that the Zodiac Killer from 7 years in the future somehow learned of the Davis case, was connected somehow to Ray Davis, was notified of it and decided to copy it, or that Ray Davis was killed by the actual Zodiac.
My bet's on 2 or 3.
Yeah.
My bet
is probably on 3.
Yeah.
But he was believed to be the first victim. All that to say, there were real connected victims 100%. Not to say that Ray Davis wasn't a real victim. I shouldn't word it that way. He absolutely was a real victim. He was senselessly murdered for no motive whatsoever. Not that there's ever an acceptable motive. But a connected victim officially to the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the 7 people affected most officially by the Zodiac Killer, I think it's important to point out that the Zodiac Killer is probably the worst thing that people can refer to him as. And it bothers me a lot that that's the only way that we can. Obviously, we don't have actual evidence of who this murderer is.
Yeah.
We don't have, it's a John Doe, right?
Yeah.
The Zodiac Killer was a name that he picked.
Yeah.
And the Zodiac Killer was a name that was sensationalized in the media. And my problem with that, and I think we've talked about this in maybe The Son of Sam. My problem with that is attributing a nickname makes this feel significantly more fictional than it is. And it takes away from the gravity of the situation. It takes away from the reality of the situation.
Also, we're giving him what he wants.
Well, not only are we giving him what he wants, but he's not a kooky character.
Yeah.
This is not a horror film.
This is some incel who's psycho.
This is some individual who is a real person who is really dangerous and is really taking away the lives of people in the community. And attributing him to a nickname makes it way easier for us to disconnect that fact.
Yeah.
And almost make it easier to cope with it.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate that we don't know who he is. But I've always found that
just like Jack the Ripper, we have to be like Jack.
Well, exactly. I've always had an issue with reviews of true crime cases where they refuse to acknowledge the real names. And that's why I like to be able to go over the real histories of these criminals as well, because it adds that personal aspect to really make people understand this is a person, and I say person in a loose term, this is a monster who is capable of terrible things. This is not some sensationalized fictional character. So I've always considered it very, very important to use a person's name and not a literary title, if you will. But all that being said,
Zoe. Starts with a Z.
But all that being said, unfortunately, we kind of have to refer to him as the Zodiac Killer because we don't know who he is. And it's way easier to just use the name. Yeah, Zoseph. You got it.
Zonzo.
Zonzo the clown. It's important to understand.
Zozo the bozo. Sorry.
There you go. No, nailed it. It's important to understand that it is a pseudonym, but this is a real person who really operated and killed and uprooted the lives of a lot of people. So, we're going to start with connection. We said when it came to Raymond Davis's murder that the killer had contacted the police beforehand. The Zodiac did very, very similar things. Not only were they in contact with police, but the Zodiac Killer claimed in messages to newspapers, because you also have to think this is the 1960s. There's no Facebook.
Yeah.
There's no posts to be spread on Twitter and Instagram. The best way to get mass-produced messages out was the newspaper and the news.
Yeah.
So in these messages that the Zodiac Killer was sending to newspapers, he claimed to have committed 37 serial murders.
Yeah.
Police and investigators can confidently connect him to 7 crimes. 5 of whom were unfortunately murdered, 2 of whom survived.
But also, obviously, that's so scary, because what if he did commit all of those murders, and
we'd never
we have no proof, and those poor 30-plus people are just, missing cases.
Well, exactly. That's the unfortunate reality of unsolved cases, right? Is there's so many unsolved cases that we just will never know, that are likely attributed to murderers who have been found. But if they're not willing to give you that information, it's a lot less likely that it's going to be organically discovered if it wasn't at the time. Because there are so many crimes. If you think about crimes in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, way more serial killers were a thing than are now. Thank God it's not a prominent problem now as significantly as it was. But there's such a high demand for current crimes to be solved. And there's such an instant demand for justice and for full focus being put on modern crimes, as there absolutely should be. But the more focus we put on those crimes, the less of our modern tools we're using to solve cases that are from the past.
Right.
So, could we use DNA evidence? Probably. Is it more effective to use DNA evidence to solve a crime that happened 50 years ago versus a crime that happened 5 days ago? Probably not, unfortunately. Do I think all these crimes deserve to be solved? 100%. But when you're looking at a task force that is already overworked with current crimes, it's going to be put back a lot, right?
So everybody stop committing crimes. Let them get back to the cold cases. We want to know.
Let them catch up. So if we're going to jump into the Zodiac, start from the confirmed beginning now.
I love how we're half an hour in and we're like, let's start.
Let's begin. Welcome to Grapes and Coffee. Which means that if we're starting with the confirmed cases, we're starting with the Lake Herman Road murders. So the first murders that were widely attributed to the Zodiac that he took credit for were the shootings of Betty Lou Jensen and David Arthur Faraday. These shootings took place on December 20th, 1968. And David and Betty Lou were
cute names.
High school students.
Yeah.
Like, they were just kids.
Yeah.
Betty Lou Jensen was a 16-year-old student at Hogan High School. And on the night of December 20th, 1968, she had a date with David Arthur Faraday, who was a 17-year-old student from Vallejo High School. So think about when you were 16, 17, and how exciting it was to go to a dance or go to the movies or just have a night out with a boy from a different school.
Yeah.
An older boy. That's the first, the first, little bit of excitement you get in teenagedom, you know?
Yeah.
Faraday drove his mother's car, which I think is adorable.
Yeah.
Because you have, it really paints the picture that these were children. They were kids. Drove his mother's car to Betty Lou's house at 8 p.m., and they left in the car at 8:30. They were going to one of Betty Lou's friends' houses.
Yeah.
Sometime after 9 o'clock that night, they drove to the outskirts of Vallejo and parked at a lover's lane on Lake Herman Road. So, Jamie, do you know what a lover's lane is?
Is it exactly what it sounds like?
Pretty much. So,
I'm assuming
think
it's a lane where teens and couples go in their cars.
Exactly. They range from streets to parking lots. I don't know if they're a thing all around the world, but
I've never been to a lover lane.
Neither have I, really. But they're essentially spots for younger couples to finally get some privacy.
Yeah.
Get the chance to go
away from mom and dad.
Exactly. Get the chance to just get to know each other. Usually a little smooching happens. Sometimes a little touchy-feely goes on.
Ooh.
So it was a big deal to go
in
to
the
a
60s?
Oh, yeah. It's 1968.
Y'all are going steady?
Exactly. It said that a passing motorist noticed the couple parked at the lover's lane between 10:15 to 10:30. They were on a gravel runoff near the gate to a water pumping station. The car was spotted again in this spot at 11 p.m. Sometime between 11:05 and 11:10 p.m. on December 20th, 1968, the couple were attacked. Police determined that an unknown assailant pulled his car up next to David's about 10 feet away from the passenger side of the vehicle. So quite close, but not close enough that he wasn't pressed up against them. He left his vehicle and approached the couple's car and fired several shots inside. The bullets kind of ricocheted and hit different spots of the car, but didn't hit Betty Lou and David. It's believed or speculated that he may have been trying to force them out of the car, trying to kind of scare them out so that they were easier to have access to. They both attempted to rush out and leave through the passenger door of the car. Betty Lou was able to get out, but as David was leaving, the unknown assailant shot him in the head with a .22 caliber rifle. The assailant then began to chase Betty Lou, who very bravely was trying to get away from the situation. She had started running away.
Yeah.
He fired 6 shots at her with the .22 caliber, and he hit her in the back 5 out of those 6 shots. He then left in his vehicle. It's believed that this entire attack took 2 to 3 minutes.
This guy's got the same aim as the guy who shot Donald Trump.
Yeah. Fuck. Another passing motorist spotted the couple's bodies at 11:10. So think, someone saw their car at 11 and were like, oh, cute, little lovers on lovers lane. And at 11:10, they were like, oh, not cute. There's 2 dead bodies here.
Yeah.
This passing motorist drove down the road, was able to flag a police patrol car to report the scene, and they obviously went immediately to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Betty Lou was pronounced dead, but David was still breathing at that point. So dude got shot in the head.
Crazy.
And was still breathing. He was taken to the hospital, but unfortunately, 17-year-old David died from his wounds.
Yeah.
Police could find no tire or footprints that were admissible. I know.
And the fact that you can't find a motive either, I hate that.
No, exactly. And there were no witnesses. This was nighttime. It was dark. There's no motive other than the killer being, as the police said, a madman.
Yeah.
They had no suspects because, again, without motive, how do you assume why someone's doing something? Nothing was taken. They're 16 and 17 years old. They don't have enemies. No one found anything. The murders were extensively covered by the media because it made no sense. It was so insane.
Yeah.
And then it was radio silence for about 7 months after. This is believed to be a cooling off period after his first successful murder, you can say, which is something that's experienced by a lot of serial killers. They kind of have, almost like when you flush a toilet. There's a period where you have to wait, and then it's ready to go again. And that brings us to the Blue Rock Springs murder.
You suck. If you're still alive and you're listening, I hate you.
I hate you. So, we then get into Blue Rock Springs. There's another couple that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau.
I thought it was Magoo.
So, no. Michael Magoo. It's believed that somewhere around midnight between July 4th and 5th, 1969, Darlene and Michael were attacked in a very similar manner to Betty Lou and David. Darlene was fatally wounded. And actually, I'll get into that after.
Oh.
Darlene was a 22-year-old lady. She was quite popular in the community. She had a job at a restaurant, so she's sociable, she's personable. You're getting to know the locals. Like, think about your favorite server at your favorite restaurant. She met Michael at this restaurant Michael was 19 years old. They became friends, started chatting. It was a bit of a scandal, though, because Darlene was still married. 22-year-old Darlene was married to a man named Dean Farron. But despite this, she and Michael went out on a date on the night of July 4th.
Hopefully they were in an open relationship.
They were not.
Oh.
As much as I dislike cheaters, I don't believe this outcome was necessary.
Yeah.
So, at around 11:30 p.m. on the night of July 4th, Darlene received a phone call in her house. Remember the days of landlines?
Oh,
when you had to call somebody's house?
Is Kate there? It's Jamie.
Do you and Kate want to come over? It's believed that this call was from Michael. She left immediately after and arrived at Michael's house around 11:50. There's some speculation about what happens once she's with Michael. Allegedly, Darlene and Michael left the house and immediately felt like they were being followed.
Ugh.
So there's some speculation there. They believe they were being followed by a man in a light-colored car. And for some reason, potentially to dissuade the person they believed was following them, Darlene started driving out of town. And she started driving toward Lake Herman Road, which is interesting. Shortly before midnight, she turned her car into an empty parking lot of the Blue Rock Springs Park. So Lake Herman Road was the lover's lane, but Blue Rock Springs Park was another popular area for couples. It was like a lover's lane 2.0. So when she pulled in, she parked about 70 feet from the lot entrance, and then another vehicle parked about 80 feet to her left. The unknown driver, who was a man, turned the headlights off and just sat in his car.
Sketchy.
Didn't look at them, didn't say anything, just sat in the turned off car.
That's even sketchier than looking over and like waving at them and be like, what's up?
100%. So naturally, Michael said, who the hell is that driver? Who's in the car? Do you know who it is? Darlene's response was, don't worry about it.
Girl.
The driver, exactly, it's the most nonchalant, don't worry about it. The driver then left the parking lot. So all of a sudden the car's gone. Which I would imagine would be kind of a relief, you know? However, about 5 minutes later, the same driver returned, parked not 80 feet anymore, but a few feet next to Darlene's vehicle at the passenger side. He exited his car, and the assailant approached Darlene's car. All of a sudden, there's a flashlight shining into the car. It would be natural to assume that this is a police officer. What are you doing in this empty parking lot? You kids shouldn't be out here. Natural things that would occur, right?
Yeah.
However, the man did not speak. And instead of pulling the flashlight away, fired a gun into the car. One bullet hit Michael in the right arm. The other hit Darlene in the neck. She was fatally wounded, unfortunately. Michael tried to leave the car, but the door handle on the passenger side was either missing or removed. There's a bit of speculation surrounding that as well. He couldn't get out of the car. The unknown assailant stepped away from Darlene's car, went back to his own. He didn't immediately leave, but he opened his car door and did something that Michael couldn't see. He then looked back at Michael, who was struggling to get out of Darlene's car, realized that he was not dead, and quickly moved back to him. He fired 4 more shots into the vehicle, 2 at Michael and 2 at Darlene, believed to finish off the job. Then he quickly moved back to the car and drove off. This attack was heard by a caretaker at the nearby golf course for Blue Rock Springs. They estimated this was about 12:10 a.m., so shortly after midnight. Again, there's no footprints, there's no traceable tire tracks, there's no distinguishable motive. Naturally, it was kind of considered, could there be some point of contention with her having been married? Could there be a personal connection?
Right.
Which is valid when it comes to questioning the investigation.
Yeah.
But there's no real motive to be found. 3 teenagers were the ones to find the wounded couple, who very quickly left to get help. And police arrived about 10 minutes later at about 12:20 a.m. Both individuals were taken to the hospital. Michael survived, thankfully.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Darlene was pronounced dead at 12:40 a.m. This was where we get the first description of the Zodiac Killer. Michael described the killer as a white man with a large face, said he was quite heavy set, around 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing 195 to 200 pounds, with short, curly, light brown hair and a pot belly. Supposedly he was wearing dark clothing and did not have glasses. Unfortunately, these details are significant, but were not enough to develop a suspect. Moments after 12:40 a.m., when Darlene is officially pronounced dead, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call from a public telephone. Remember those too? Not just landlines, but phone booths and stuff.
Those are also sketchy.
Crazy. But this telephone was within 2 blocks from them. The man on the other line of the call stated, "I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Hung up.
That's why they're sketchy.
Very sketchy. So, immediately we have the first contact and the first admittance of a connection. Like I said, there was some theories about Darlene potentially knowing the Zodiac Killer beforehand or having some sort of connection. But that's all speculation, and I don't really want to get into that because it is all completely speculative. But that is something that some people may discuss. With this murder comes not only the first really established correspondence over the phone with the Zodiac, but then we start to get the letters, which is probably what makes the Zodiac so famous.
Yeah.
Jamie, take it away.
So, yeah, one of the reasons this mofo is so notorious is his letters and ciphers that he would send to the San Francisco Examiner, the San Francisco Chronicle, all of these papers and publishing companies, and yeah, it really sensationalized it, unfortunately. So each time these places would receive a letter, they were all handwritten letters in an envelope with no return address. They would begin by saying, like, "Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman," and he would, like, go into details about the murders to, I guess, like, prove that it was him. I also, if you look at the letters, we'll put some pictures on Instagram of, like, the cipher and stuff, bro has a child's handwriting. His handwriting is very similar to the Son of Sam one, where it screams, "Yes, I'm a serial killer." And Mr. Zodiac threatens further attacks if the letters weren't printed on the front pages. So, of course, they did. Because they didn't want that on their conscience. Each letter was finished or closed off with the symbol consisting of the circle with the cross. That is now the Zodiac Killer's symbol. And so now, when you think Zodiac Killer, that is what you think of. It is Notorious, unfortunately. The letters were also accompanied by one part of a 3-part cipher that he claims contains his identity.
Which is fucking insane.
And also...
How important do you think you are?
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Irrelevant.
It's okay. I'm looking at a picture of one of the ciphers now. You have to have no life. There's, regular letters, H and E and P and G, but then there's also, squares and, circles, triangles, lines. Some people...
What it makes me think of... Sorry.
You're good.
It makes me think of... Do you remember... Might be a niche thing. Remember in Club Penguin? Doing the secret agent missions.
I do remember. I remember you doing it.
Yeah. You would use your cipher.
Yeah.
And it was a fun thing to do as a kid, to discover these secret codes. You
do that messages. In escape rooms, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's fucking insane to come up with a 408 symbol cipher.
Yeah, you have to be actually crazy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing in your free time?
You're using astrological symbols.
Very American Horror Story. Yeah. Zodiac.
Yes.
Make the connection. Sorry, my brain fires. My neurons fire at a slower rate.
But it's just again, like I said, how important do you have to think you are?
Yeah.
That people are gonna take the time to do this. But you're forcing people to think you're important by taking away the lives of others, which is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll upload a picture, but there's a couple pictures of cryptograms that he sent in to the San Francisco Chronicle in 1969. The Bay Area Police Departments and the FBI really want to catch this guy, because it's you dozer.
It's fucking nuts.
You're killing people and then taunting the police and trying to go viral in the media back then. And as they're working feverishly to find this guy, of course, another letter arrives. And it says, "Dear editor, this is Zodiac speaking," hence his self-proclaimed name, which...
Is this the August 4th letter? I think that was the first time he ever addressed himself. So, the media... Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
But the media had started pulling from his letters, pulling from the astrological symbols he was using in the cipher, all of these things that he was saying, and they dubbed him the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
He fucking ran with it.
He said, yes!
He was like, that's exactly what he wanted, and this is what I mean. You're feeding into the hands of a psychopath.
Yeah.
And it was the first time he addressed himself in saying, this is the Zodiac speaking.
Yeah, so in that one, he describes the murder in detail, and he also taunts the police for not being able to crack his code or catch him. Thankfully, several days later, apparently a high school teacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife, Betty, also love the way you spelled your name, Betty, slay, they were able to solve the cipher. Couldn't be me. And the cipher said, I like killing people because it is so much fun. You crazy. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Okay. I feel like you didn't need to, what was the point of that?
The letter goes on to say, to kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise.
Spelled paradise wrong.
He spelled so many things wrong. And all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collection of slaves for my afterlife.
Like, what are you talking about? What religion is this?
It's also important to point out that there's 18 letters
at
the end of the 408 symbol cipher that have not been determined. We still don't know what that last clump says.
Yeah.
Because following the cipher that kind of discovered the initial chunk of the letter leads you to complete nonsense. So did he use a separate cipher for the last little bit? Is he trying to throw people off? It's completely unknown.
In another one of his letters, like 3 days after the supposed fourth Zodiac killing, proven, of course, they received a letter claiming this crime as well, in the same weird schizoid letter writing, giving details of a murder as well as a bloody scrap of clothing. And at the end of the letter, he said he planned to, like, shoot out the tire of a school bus and, I quote, pick off kitties as they come bouncing out. So glad he didn't do that.
100%, but also, again, there's connection. So we said with Ray Davis's murder, the killer got in contact with the police and threatened a bus driver. So here we are again in this other one, and we'll talk more about the murder that preceded this.
Yes.
But, again, we've got a connection to a bus and this need for acknowledgement of what he could potentially do.
Those taunting letters and ciphers, they continued for years. There was, like, 20 letters in the span of, like, 5 years. And we, to this day, we're still solving them. Like, in 2020, it was awesome during the pandemic. Some amateur sleuths apparently had some time to...
So bored during the pandemic that you fucking solved the Zodiac.
Yeah, literally, let's crack this code. And they helped, which is crazy. It's a little bit too late. Yeah, they were able to translate the cipher that, unfortunately, all it says is, like, I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me. And it wasn't me on the TV show. And what else did he say? I'm not afraid of...
It is important to point out that for some reason, people wanted to claim that they were the Zodiac Killer. They wanted to...
I don't know why
they wanted to take credit for it, which is fucking psychotic. But go off, sure.
Yeah.
But there's people who are calling in, giving their own personal information and saying, I am the Zodiac Killer. This is what I've done. And trying to take credit. So giving interviews on the TV, giving interviews for different newspapers. So for him to acknowledge, that was not me, and continue to give further information, shows that he's watching. He's paying a lot of attention to what the media is doing. He's absolutely loving it. And the fucked up part of it all is that without publishing this information, you're also not going to get any further information from him. But by publishing the information, you are fueling exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
And it's not stopping him.
Also, do we wonder if after everything ended in, like, 1974 and he supposedly stopped killing, what if he just moved and started killing somewhere else?
That's a whole other theory.
Like, anyway.
Also, it was kind of interesting for me, from the perspective of someone who's interested in, like, literature and stuff, and used to go over short stories and everything with a lot of kids that I worked with. Older kids, obviously, for context, not the kindergartners I work with.
Yeah.
In one of his letters, he seems to make a lot of references to a short story called The Most Dangerous Game, which was published in 1924 by Richard Connell, which is basically the short story about this guy who falls off a yacht. He goes to this island and thinks he's quite safe. He gets to kind of chill for a minute because he finds this mansion on this island and gets to talk to the person who owns it. Come to find out from further conversations with this person that owns the mansion that he hunts humans for sport. And he's the one that says humans are the most dangerous animal of all. And that's why they go hunting. So his connection to that is interesting because despite the fact that there's so many misspellings, there's such childish handwriting, it's almost interesting to see how there's also such an intricate cipher that he's created by himself. And he's making literary references to stories that are quite significant in terms of, I guess, educational value, being able to study all the different aspects of literature in a short story. That's not a super commonly known short story either. So it's interesting the juxtaposition between such an what a word to fuck up. Such an intelligent side of him versus this almost childish, juvenile innocence that comes in the misspellings and the childish handwriting. I don't know, it's a whole other layer of intrigue about who the fuck this person is. But like we were saying, just because the letters are being published and because the media is acknowledging what he wants doesn't mean that the murders stop. So while the police and newspapers are getting these correspondence with the Zodiac Killer, more crimes occur. And that brings us to the Lake Berryessa murder. So on September 27th, Pacific Union College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, so another couple, were picnicking at Lake Berryessa on a small island that's connected by a sandspit to Twin Oak Ridge. While they are picnicking, a white male, believed to be about 5'11", weighing more than 170 pounds, approached the couple. This time, this unknown assailant was wearing a black executioner's type hood with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes and a bib-like device on his chest that had a white 3x3-inch cross circle symbol on it. The cross circle symbol, as you will remember from what Jamie talked about, the Zodiac letters, was how he signed off his letters. The hooded man approached the couple with a gun, which Hartnell believed to be a .45, and claimed that he was an escaped convict from a jail with a 2-word name, either from Colorado or Montana, where he had killed a guard and stolen a car, and that brought him here. It was later inferred that this could have been Deer Lodge Jail in Montana. A park ranger said that Hartnell referenced Colorado, so there's speculation when it comes to there. Doesn't matter either way because this guy was telling a bullshit story. The man with the hood said that he needed their car and money to travel to Mexico because the stolen vehicle was, and I quote, too hot. This unknown assailant had brought pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline and made Shepard tie up Hartnell before the killer proceeded to do the same with her. So she tied up Brian tied her up. The killer checked and tightened Brian's bonds, discovering that she had bound them loosely in an attempt to have him escape quite quickly.
Sorry, was this an episode of American Horror Story as well? That's why I'm picturing it so vividly. Got it.
It was indeed, yes. There you go, take a shot when we mention American Horror Story. Buckle up for the next batch of episodes on that one, though. Instead of robbing the couple, as he was claiming to have the desire to do, the man drew a knife and stabbed the couple repeatedly. Hartnell was stabbed 6 times and Shepard 10. The unnamed assailant then hiked about 500 yards up to Knoxville Road, found Brian's car, and on his car door drew the cross circle symbol with a black felt tip pen, and beneath it wrote Vallejo, 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27th, 69, 6:30 by knife.
Jesus.
At 7:40, the Napa County Sheriff's Department received a call from a payphone at a car wash in downtown Napa. This caller stated to the operator that he wished to report a murder, a double murder, and then saying that he committed the crime. Then left the phone off the hook and fled. Detectives lifted a still wet palm print from the phone, but were never able to match it to any suspect. When you're using a public telephone, it's very hard, which is fair. A man and his son who were fishing in a nearby cove heard Hartnell and Shepard scream and ended up going to check out the scene. Got help by contacting park rangers, and park rangers found the couple. Shepard was conscious and provided a detailed description of the attacker before she and Brian were taken to the Queen of the Valley Hospital in Napa. Unfortunately, during transport, she lapsed into a coma, never regained consciousness, and was declared dead in the hospital 2 days later. Brian, however, survived and told his tale to the press. 2 weeks later, we get to Presidio Heights. And this leads us to the murder that Jamie was referencing about Paul Stine.
Yeah.
So, at around 9:40 p.m. on October 11th, 1969, Paul Stine, a cab driver in Presidio, which is in downtown San Francisco, had a white male passenger enter his taxi. This passenger requested to be driven to Washington and Maple Streets, which were in Presidio Heights. When they arrived, the passenger again asked to be driven 1 block down to Washington and Cherry Streets. No one knows why this request was given. It's speculated that maybe he saw someone who could potentially be a witness, noticed that the next block's corner was obscured by a large tree and wanted more privacy. Who knows? Regardless, Paul Stine drove the block of distance, and at approximately 9:55 p.m., the unknown assailant shot Paul Stine in the head with a handgun, which killed him immediately. Unlike most other circumstances where no actual robbery was taking place, this individual took Stine's wallet and car keys. And this is believed to be the last officially confirmed murder by the Zodiac. There were 3 teenagers across the street who witnessed the incident, which I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a horrifying thing to see. But they called the San Francisco Police Department while the crime was occurring and gave the description that the man in question was a husky white man wearing a dark or black jacket. The dispatcher, supposedly mistakenly, broadcast to the San Francisco police, who were out on call at the moment, that the suspect was a black man. 2 blocks from the crime scene, as police are on patrol, about 2 minutes after the phone call was placed, the officers on patrol observed a white male in dark clothes walking north away from the crime scene and towards the Presidio Army base. Police pulled up alongside the man, asked if they'd seen anything suspicious, and the man said that he'd seen a man waving a gun earlier, and he went east down Washington. The police then drove away quickly, looking for a black man walking east down Washington. It is now believed, based on what the Zodiac said in his letter, that the man that they spoke to was the Zodiac Killer. Which infuriates me to no end. That they were literally speaking to him. They were so close. But because of the bullshit that this police department was giving, and that this dispatcher fucked up, they were looking for a completely different profile of a man. The three teenagers oh my fucking god. The three teenagers, fuck me. 3 teenagers who were witness to the killing also observed the killer was wiping the cab down. And then, because he had to lean on the cab to get inside to clean, they found partial prints from 2 of the fingers on the right hand on the cab. But again, could never pinpoint it to an official suspect. So initially, because it didn't really follow the Zodiac's modus operandi, if you will.
Ooh.
It's MO. It was initially
okay,
believed...
Spencer Reed.
What can I say? You know. It was initially believed that it was a robbery that escalated into a homicide. Unfortunately, not a super uncommon occurrence. However, on October 13th, the Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac that Jamie referred to earlier that not only claimed credit for the killing, but also contained a torn section of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, as proof that he really was the one to do this. This is the same letter that included a threat about killing school children on a school bus. The officers who initially responded then realized that they had not only seen the Zodiac, but had interacted with him. And they helped make a composite sketch of the man alongside the witnesses, the teenagers. And that's how we got potentially the most common sketch of what they believe the Zodiac looked like.
The one you definitely are thinking of.
Yes, if you've seen a picture of the Zodiac, you've seen...
Sorry.
What?
That is mean.
Oh my god. But yes.
But I mean it.
So the letter that Jamie was referring to before, that was solved in 2020, again, included those misspellings, grammar errors. And that letter was a 340 symbol cipher as opposed to the 408 one that was discovered by the high school teacher and his wife. Said, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death."
So where's that coming from? Because, like, what religion says if you kill people, you're going to paradise?
None of them.
And I don't know what he's talking about. If I die and there's, like, a good place and a bad place, I'm surrounded by my animals and my best friend is there, so I'm chilling.
That's me.
Yeah, speak for yourself, sir.
Yeah, no, it genuinely is coming from a point of psychosis and delusion at that point.
And if killing people means you get, like, slaves in another life, I'm fine with not killing anybody. I don't need slaves in this life, let alone afterlife.
No, exactly.
Freak.
Finally, there's other suspected victims that I will kind of go over a little bit. But I want to point out, in 1966, there was another murder that's believed to be attributed to the Zodiac. And that was the murder of Cherry Jo Bates. So on October 30th, or sometime between 9:23 p.m. on October 30th and 12:23 a.m. on October 31st of 1966, Cherry Jo Bates was unfortunately murdered. she had visited her college library where her Volkswagen Beetle, which I'm super jealous of, a dream car, was disabled by her eventual killer. Her car was found approximately 100 yards from the alley where she was killed. 18-year-old Cherry Jo Bates was beaten and stabbed multiple times with a short-bladed knife. Her throat was cut, but there was no evidence of robbery or sexual molestation, and in this case, there were no witnesses. It wasn't until October of 1969 that it was believed that the Zodiac Killer could have been involved in Cherry Jo's case. There were similarities between the Bates case and the Zodiac killings from September 27th, 1969. So, eventually, the Zodiac sent a letter to the LA Times, which was postmarked March 13th, 1971, accepting responsibility for Cherry Jo's murder. More confession letters were mailed, blah, blah, blah. But a confession letter had also been anonymously mailed from Riverside on November 29th, 1966, back in the day, shortly after Cherry Jo's murder. Included details of the murder that had never been released by the police, and there was a morbid poem scratched into the surface of one of the desks in her college library. The writing was very, very similar to that of the Zodiac Killer.
Ruh-roh.
Despite the fact that it is not universally confirmed, it is also believed that Cherry Jo could have been one of the murders. So the Zodiac can only officially be tied to the 5 murders, 7 attacks. So that's Faraday and Jensen, Farron and Mageau, Shepard and Hartnell, and Stein. However, based on speculation and based on what the Zodiac had said in his letters, he could have murdered up to 37 people.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But like Jamie said too, it could be way more. We don't know.
Yeah. I want to talk about theories. There are lots of theories, as you just heard. And some of them are crazy. For example, some people think that Texas Senator Ted Cruz is the Zodiac Killer.
Okay,
he was born 2 years after the killing started. I don't think it was him.
I know that was such a fucked up thing to joke about, but that was the funniest theory I've ever heard.
Yeah. It's like, of all of them, I'm going to say not that one.
Definitely not that one.
There's also a lot of people claiming over the years that their dads were the killers. Hey guys, your dads are just bad dads. That doesn't mean they're the serial killer. You have daddy issues. But not my point. We'll get back to that on a later episode. In 2022, an author, I don't know how to say any of these names, guys. You know the drill. Jarrett Kobek wrote an investigative book titled How to Find Zodiac and hypothesized that the killer's identity was someone named Paul Doerr. I don't know. A San Francisco Bay Area man who died in 2007. See, again, you can't really prove much because he's already dead. He argues that both the Zodiac Killer and Poel, P-O-E-L, I don't know, Poel, had an interest through writing in making homemade bombs, particularly talking about ammonium nitrate and fertilizer, as well as he had a similar build to the suspect. He also worked in a shipyard in, how do you say that word, Vallejo, at the time of the murders. Unfortunately, I think a lot of guys enjoy looking up how to make bombs. That is just a classic.
It's a niche interest for men.
Yeah.
Weapons.
If I didn't want to go on a list, I'd probably look it up too out of curiosity, but I am scared.
100%. We're already on some kind of list.
Yeah, that's true. In October of 2021, a team of 40 former law enforcement investigators called the Case Breakers claimed to have identified the Zodiac Killer. Did you already talk about this? Okay. You looked at it and I was like, oh, was I not listening? And she said this already.
It's just a sick name.
Oh, the Case Breakers? Yeah. They believed that the Zodiac Killer was a guy named Gary Francis Post, who died in 2018. Again, already dead.
Not
Doesn't
much
help.
you can do with that.
But they believed that the DNA evidence found at the scene of the Cherry Joe Bates is his, and because they also said that Gary has the same shoe size as the Zodiac Killer, as well as similar forehead scars. I don't really know how accurate that would be, because like nobody's like can accurately describe his face, but you know. And they believe that the letters to the press contain anagrams of his name. However, the police force have remained adamant that he's not a suspect. So it's like, okay. Because they weren't sure of, like, the confirmed victims. So they're like, probably not. Which
makes sense, unfortunately. Yeah. Like, I have to give that to them, is that...
Yeah.
He might have been the one to kill Cherry Joe.
Yeah.
But it's not confirmed for sure that she was a Zodiac victim.
Yes. Another theory / suspect is Louis Myers. A man came forward in 2014 to reveal that his friend named Louis Myers confessed to being the killer before he died in 2002. Again, not helpful.
And again, a lot of people have claimed it.
Yeah. Maybe he just wants to get rich quick. The only compelling part of that story is that apparently events in Louis' life matched up with those to the Zodiac. Like where he was at the time, where he was living, what he was doing. However, there's no conclusive proof because they didn't match up with 2 of the victims.
Right.
So, again, you can't really prove much. The next one, Earl Van Best Jr.
What a name.
Yeah. In 2014, there was a published works, The Most Dangerous Animal of Them All, by Gary L. Stewart, in which he claimed that his father, Earl Van Best Jr., who bears a strong resemblance to the man in the police sketch, was a Zodiac Killer. However, that was the only thing that he had proof of. So
How big do your daddy issues have to be that you write a whole book on your dad being the Zodiac Killer?
Very. We've got another one, Richard Giowski. That was a popular Zodiac Killer suspect. He lived in Bay Area and was a newspaper reporter and editor at the time during the murders, according to Portland Monthly. And in 1971, he was involuntarily committed to Napa State Mental Hospital, which people think could explain why the killing stopped, according to those who believe this theory. And a survivor of the attacks apparently claims the man who chased him and shot him was named Richard. A victim's sister said she recognized Giowski attending her brother's funeral, but...
So that was the second murder.
Yeah.
Remember I said that there was believed to be some sort of connection between Darlene?
Yeah.
That they said that there was someone in her life named Richard that, there was someone that she could have known. There's a picture of her with someone who matches the description that the man that she was with gave. Yeah.
Honestly, out of all of them so far, that one's the best working theory.
Well, that one actually has something to work with.
Substance.
Yeah.
Another one we've got is Arthur Lee Allen. True crime author and former San Francisco Chronicle cartoonist Robert Graysmith wrote 2 separate works on the killer. In 1986, Zodiac, and in 2002, Zodiac Unmasked. And he identified the man as Arthur Lee Allen as the most likely suspect. However, Allen died in 1992 and was never conclusively connected to any of the murders.
It is important to point out, though, that Arthur Lee Allen was confirmed to be the only suspect that police would openly acknowledge was a suspect in the case. So Arthur Lee Allen is widely believed to be the culprit. He was, like I said, the only man ever named by police as a Zodiac suspect. He was a former elementary school teacher and a convicted sex offender, so he was fucked up already.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of evidence suggesting...
Is this the one you believe?
It's the most compelling to me, but again, it's also the only one that police have ever really acknowledged. So, does that sway me? Probably a little bit. So he was given honorable discharge in 1959 from the U.S. Navy. It's believed it could have been a little bit of PTSD psychosis coming back from that. In 1958, he faced a special court-martial at Treasure Island for bringing a loaded .45 automatic pistol onto the naval base. Ended up being found not guilty, but that's beside the point. He lived in Vallejo. He worked minutes away from where Darlene Ferrin lived and from where one of the killings took place. He'd been fired from his teaching job in March 1968 after allegations of sexual misconduct with students, so that could have been a trigger to start murdering. He was generally well regarded by those who knew him, but people who knew him also described him as fixated on young children and angry at women.
Nasty.
So, fuck you. Just saying.
Yeah.
Was interviewed by Detective John Lynch of the Vallejo Police Department in October of 1969. And he had been reported in the vicinity of the Lake Berryessa attack on September 27th. He was scuba diving, supposedly, at Salt Point that day. Again, he came to police attention in 1971 when his friend Donald Cheney reported to police in Manhattan Beach that he had spoken of his desire to kill people, that he had used the name Zodiac, and that he secured a flashlight to a firearm for visibility at night. So again, going back to the claims that there was a flashlight in the car and then all of a sudden they were being shot at.
Yeah.
So again, he was interviewed by the police again in 1971. In 1972, the San Francisco Police Department obtained a search warrant for his residence. And in 1974, he was arrested for lewdness with a 9-year-old boy, where he was then sent to a Atascadero State Hospital for evaluation and treatment. So, could it be that things stopped because he was dealing with that case? Potentially.
Or it's the convicted murderer Charles Manson. Because that's also a theory.
That is a theory. I would like to point out, though, that the reason, one of the big reasons that it's speculated that Arthur Lee Allen was using the name Zodiac was a watch that he wore. So he had a watch called the Zodiac
Wasn't that
Seawolf.
part of the movie too?
Yes.
That's why it sounds familiar.
He had a watch called the Zodiac Seawolf, which had the same logo as the Zodiac Killer in the letters. And he wore shoes that were about a 10.5, which the only time they ever found suspected footprints was from 10.5.
I have 3 more theories that are less compelling than this one, but I think I want to mention.
Tell me.
Another theory is that the Zodiac Killer is the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski.
No.
Yeah. Yes. There's a theory that he was also the Zodiac Killer who died in prison in June of 2023, who conducted a bomb campaign between 1978 and 95 when he was arrested. But some people speculate that, I think I'm saying his name right? Kaczynski?
Did Kaczynski die in 23?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh no.
But people thought that he lived in the Bay Area around the same time. And he also sent taunting letters to the authorities as the Unabomber. But that's about as far-fetched as that one goes. There's also a theory that the Zodiac Killer is none of those people named, but a man who eventually decided to move to Scotland, committed some more murders there, and then realized that he found happiness and he gave up and is living a normal life in Scotland. I don't know why Scotland specifically. The final theory I have to present today, Your Honor, is the one that I think I most likely believe. And it's that it has multiple killers. Because, especially a 2023 Peacock's docuseries, The Myth of the Zodiac Killer, describes that they think it was carried out by multiple people. Because, like, they're all different. They're, like, the only thing that really connects them is the calls and the letters. And you can, like, I don't know. They've got different weapons, different motives, different victim profiles, different eyewitness statements, different locations, like, and trophies. Serial killers usually take trophies from their victims. He didn't do that.
Not once, except for Paul Stein.
Yeah.
Why did he take something from Paul?
Like, I don't know. I think maybe it could have been maybe a couple people. Maybe it was a sick group of people in a cult. Maybe it was a couple of friends who were like, I like killing. Maybe it was a bunch of strangers. And then there was one guy who's sick in the head who was like, ooh, I'm going to follow
credit
this.
For all of it.
Yeah. Like, I believe that one more because, like, I don't know. It just feels so dispersed and random. And, like, no one was caught.
It's definitely very disjointed.
But I think there is someone who is, like, the Zodiac Killer who wanted that name, who made the ciphers. I think that is one person, but I don't know if all the killings were that guy.
No, I agree.
And that's my thoughts on it.
No, I agree. I think the hard part about this, like I said, I'm more inclined to believe the Arthur Lee Allen side of things.
Yeah.
But I'm fully aware that that's...
I'll go more conspiracy, you go more straight and narrow.
But it's highly likely that that's just because it's the only one that's been acknowledged by the police. There could be a bias in that for me as well, 100%. So Jamie mentioned that Arthur Lee Allen was depicted in a film called Zodiac. So the movie Zodiac was a fantastic movie. It's a 2007 film directed by David Fincher. It was an adaptation of Robert Graysmith's books Zodiac and Zodiac Unmasked. So it's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, Robert Downey Jr.
It's got that guy in it he plays the clown with the messed up face in American Horror Story too, doesn't he?
Yes, Mr. Jingles.
Yeah. I don't remember his name. Love that guy.
Yep. Not Mr. Jingles, but the same guy that plays Mr. Jingles.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what's the clown's name?
Bozo. Pogo.
Nope.
Cuckoo. Jerky. Jokey.
Twisty.
I was close. Jerky.
Jerky Bozo.
Jerky the clown.
But yes, from a filmmaker standpoint, this film was very well researched. There were interviews with people involved with the case, detectives, victims, families. However, Zodiac researchers said that the film had inaccuracies, including a scene with Darlene Ferrin's sister, which is based on the speculation of Darlene knowing the guy, all these sorts of things. And it also further shows the belief in Arthur Lee Allen's culpability, which, again, my bias could come from watching that film as well. But if you are interested in the story of the Zodiac Killer and all of the cases that are involved, despite the fact that it is a mystery thriller film and not entirely accurate, it does do a fantastic job. And it is a very interesting film. I think it's interesting, too, that the Zodiac also inspired characters in movies like Dirty Harry, The Exorcist 3, 7, and The Batman.
Oh.
Yeah, so...
Okay.
And, I mean, pop culture also really latched on to Zodiac.
Yeah.
And honest to God, I can't even mention the amount of shows.
You would literally just be like listing off like 1, 2, 3.
Well, exactly. That have taken liberty with the Zodiac case, done Zodiac inspired episodes. I don't know, there's a lot of differences when it comes to how the media has taken the Zodiac story and, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, sensationalized it and turned it into this character of the Zodiac Killer, and almost forgotten about the fact that this is a real unsolved case where many people were affected and unfortunately had their lives taken from them. So it's a significant thing that has, unfortunately, as many true crime cases seem to be in the media, really been considered less serious because it's also interesting enough for the media to continue to talk about it. And it's kind of a catch-22 again, in the fact that there no longer is Zodiac letters coming through. There's no longer Zodiac correspondence from whoever this killer or killers were, whatever the case may be. But he's still a prevalent part of the media today. These murders happened in the 60s, potentially before then, potentially after then. But generally speaking, it's a significant amount of time. That's 60 years ago, where we are still publishing those letters. We are still having the conversations. Jamie and I are here doing it today. I'm not blind to how hypocritical it is to talk about the media talking about it, while also being a part of the media talking about it. But I think it's important to point out that the Zodiac is still getting what he wants. And we are still no further, no closer to discovering who he really is and why the Zodiac killings happened at all. And I think that's what keeps the intrigue of the Zodiac Killer's crimes so alive and so vivid, even 60 years into the future.
My concluding statement to the judges and the jury: it wasn't me. I was not born then.
Shit.
And I guess it wasn't Ted Cruz either. But I'm not Ted, so I can't fully debunk that. I can pretty much tell you it wasn't Caitlin.
You didn't say that confidently enough for me.
I'm sure it wasn't Caitlin. But let us know what you think, honestly. I want to know what you guys think. Leave it in the comments below.
If you would like to chime in on your perspective on...
Or mention ones we didn't even get to, because I know there are more.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. We've been recording for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get into all of the details with everything, because it would be impossible in a decent amount of time.
Yep.
However, if you would like to join in on the conversation and continue the speculation, continue the intrigue like we were just talking about, you can get in touch with us on our email, which is creepsandcoffee@gmail.com. You can send us a message over on our Instagram or our Twitter at Creeps and Coffee. That's where you can also find the police sketch of the Zodiac Killer, images of the letters of the cipher, all of those fascinating things. Or you can follow along and subscribe to our Patreon if you want bonus exclusive content every month, if you want access to exclusive behind the scenes looks at what our recording sessions look like, and if you would like to get a special shout out at the end of every episode and hear your name right here, right from our mouths, you can do that over at patreon.com/creepsandcoffee.
Let me mispronounce your name.
Yeah, she's really creative with it.
Not on purpose.
We are so grateful that you have joined us for another fascinating episode of Creeps and Coffee, and we are looking forward to chatting with you again very soon.
And be very excited for what's coming in August.
Yeah, because we're excited.
I'm so excited.
So pumped. All right. Be safe. Stay vigilant out there.
And apparently don't go making out at lovers' lanes.
Don't do that. Also, your boys are gross.
Yeah. Ew. Cooties.
Bye.
Bye.
Creeps and Coffee is produced and edited by us, Kate and Jane.
Our theme music is Stuck in a Hole by Dated.
For more information on where to find them, check out the link in our show notes. And to connect with us, follow us on Instagram and Twitter @CreepsandCoffee.